This oral history interview recording is being made as part of a collection for the Seminole County Public Library. These interviews capture the stories and experiences of Seminole County residents who have resided in the county since 1960 or before. Today is Monday, January 8th, 2024. My name is Amy Marie Cantley. I am interviewing Mr. Rodger Smithson at his residence in Oviedo, Florida. Mr. Smithson, do I have permission to record this interview and make it publicly accessible on the library website?
Yes, you do.
Do I have permission to share this interview and any supporting materials with the Longwood Historical Society for inclusion with their oral history collection?
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When and where were you born, Rodger?
I was born in Orlando ORMC, Orlando Regional Medical Center, and 7/14/45.
Thank you. And
Orlando.
When did your family move to the Central Florida area?
They came to Central Florida about 1941, and they located in Pine Castle. They moved to this area, the Oviedo area, just prior to my birth in 1945. And they bought a piece of property. It was the old Moore Dairy Farm, and my dad redid the old dairy barn for us to live in. That was our home.
What was the purpose for them relocating to the area, to Seminole County?
I couldn't tell you. That was before my time. I'm not really sure why they moved here. They wanted land of their own, and they didn't own land in Pine Castle, so they bought this property. They got far enough along that they could buy a piece of property of their own, and they moved out here.
And you mentioned that they moved into a dairy barn. What was that like?
There was a barn where they milked the cows. There was a room that we determined was the feed room, where they stored the feed. There was another room that was insulated with corkboard that they stored the milk in till whoever came got it. And the dairy was on a 40-acre parcel, and I think the folks that owned it just got old and retired from it. And my dad bought the property from them.
Thank you. So you've been in Seminole County for a long time. What were some of your earliest memories of the area?
Alfea Trail. It didn't have a name then, best I can tell. I remember it was Central Avenue in Oviedo. It was just a one-lane dirt road from where is right now is Mitchell Hammock Road all the way to Highway 50. It was just a one-lane dirt road, and if anybody drove past our house, my dad would look up and see them, so they'd be back in a little while. They get stuck, and they get stuck in the sand down there, and sure enough, they'd come walking back, and he'd go down and pull them out, and they'd go back where they came from, because they couldn't you just couldn't hardly get through there. The sand was so bad, thick.
So did you attend schools in the area as well?
School?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I went to, then it was Oviedo High School, 1 through 12. I started school there, and I went through the 10th grade. That's as far as I made it. They changed the rules in the school system that year, and they put me back 3 years all of a sudden, so I didn't want to stay there that long, so I left.
What did you do after you left school?
Okay, after I left school, I got a job at HLH Cannon plant in Sanford. They were building that plant over there where Sadisco Auto Sales occupied years later. That's all gone now. But I worked there for less than a year. Then I went to work for a heating and air conditioning company in Orlando. Worked there for about a year, and then I went to work for Clark Electric. Worked for them for about a year, Went to work for GP Electric out of Kissimmee. Then they moved me to a new company. They started Metro Electric in Orlando, and I worked there until 1971 when I started my own business, Smithson Electric, and it's still going. I ran it for 53 years, and I've just recently sold it this past September. It's still there in Oviedo on Erie Drive. So that's what I've done.
Your parents, what did they do for a living?
I'm sorry?
Your parents, what did they do for a living?
My dad was, when he was in Pinecastle, he raised chickens, had a chicken farm down there for my uncle. Then he was a fireman at the Pinecastle Air Base after that. Before that, when he was in Vesper, Alabama, he was a motorcycle cop. I backed up a little bit. After working down there, and he moved out here, he went to work for Duda and Son as a mechanic there. And that's when he wound up building the mule train, the celery harvester, the corn harvester, and all that. He and John L. Duda worked together on that and designed and built the thing. It was quite a thing for the time. And he worked there for I don't know how many years, but later he left there and went to work for Clontz, C.R. Clontz, Mr. Roy Clontz in Oviedo. And he built 3 more of those mule trains, but Mr. Clontz had to pay Mr. Duda the franchise or the rights on them. But he built them all, and that's he did. He sold tires for a short time. I can't tell you when that was. It was in the middle of some of this stuff. He was a tire salesman for a short time, and he ran a paper route for a while. I think he did all those things at the same time, to tell you the truth. He just, like people work several jobs.
Keeping things going.
That's kind of what he did. But he worked for Clontz up until the time he died. Trying to think of the year. I was 17. I'm not sure what year it was. I was born in 45. You do the math.
63 or so.
Yeah, 63. I think that's right. Yep, I believe that's what it was, when it was. Yeah, it was 3 months before I turned 18. I know because my mom got 3 Social Security checks, $125 each for all the years my dad paid into Social Security. That's all she got out of it. Gotta love government.
So your dad was involved with the agricultural community around here.
Yes.
Do you have any memories of that community?
Memories of that period?
Of the agricultural community when Oviedo was largely agriculture.
Oh yeah, Oviedo was a migrant farm town then, and there was a celery pre-cooler in Oviedo. There was an orange packing plant there. There was a fertilizer manufacturer, all tied to the agriculture, and a lot of little truck farms around, little small farmers that. Clontz was one of the bigger farmers, and of course Wheeler was a bigger farmer, and then Duda was a huge farmer. And there was other farmers around. A.M. Jones was a farmer. The Moon brothers, Tommy and Reese Moon, had Moon farms, and I think Estes had Estes farms, and then out Chihuahua way, there was ranches and things. The Fords and the Jacobs out there had ranch land out there. They raised cattle and so on. There was Wheeler had a lot of orange groves, and they owned the packing house and the celery pre-cooler. I think they probably, Duda also had a celery pre-cooler, but I think that Wheeler actually did the pre-cooling for Clontz's celery, because Clontz was fairly good sized farmers. They weren't nearly as big as Wheeler was, but there was rows of migrant homes, little shotgun shacks basically, right alongside of what's now Central Avenue in Oviedo. They were 15 feet off the road, right, just little shacks basically, but that was basically the workers, and the farmers owned those things, and they provided housing for the workers, the ones that stayed. A lot of them migrated from New York to Florida when with the crops, because they raised celery in New York in the summer, and they went back and forth there. And Clontz raised celery in Oviedo, but they raised corn in Zellwood. So when the celery season was over, they'd take those mule trains and a little bit of adapting, and they would drive them from Oviedo out 436 all the way to Zellwood. 3 of those mule trains. Then my dad was a mechanic, so he run interference for him, and sometimes I rode with him when he did that. A lot of fun. It was real interesting. He was all over the place. And then in the summer out of school, I would go over to Zellwood, go in early every morning with him and work on the celery harvester or corn harvesters. I mean, I was the only white boy on the thing. All the rest of the help was black, and it was interesting.
So I would imagine then that during harvest time, the population around here ballooned.
Oh yeah, it really grew later after I was out of school and so on. It was still a small migrant farm town up through the late 60s. It started really taking off in the 70s. Mm-hmm. It was really going by then, and I'm not sure what year they built the university, but that made a lot of difference. It got, of course, a lot of housing for the students and so on, and the whole area just grew from that. It hasn't stopped. It's really going today. I think I told you about the canning kitchen that they used to have there.
You did, but I would love to get that story recorded.
When I was a pretty small child, the farmers in Oviedo, when they finished with their money crop, when they finished, they'd put a sign, it's a hand-painted sign in the field saying open field, and anybody was welcome to it, whatever was left. And there's a lot of, I can remember going down, Mom would take us kids down and put us out, we'd all pick cucumbers, if I see a field of cucumbers, and bring them back to the county's canning kitchen. And the canning, you had to make an appointment, and the kitchen could handle 3 families in there canning at the same time. And us kids would wash the produce outside and bring it to the door. They didn't let us in. That just the adults inside, and they would make pickles and what have you out of the cucumbers. And then if the cabbage was, they was raise a lot of cabbage around here, Mom would make sauerkraut out of the cabbage. Same thing. We'd pick it and carry it up there and clean it. Corn, same thing. Celery, there's no way to can it, so there was nothing to do with it. And oranges were just everywhere here, and anybody picked whatever oranges they wanted to at the time. The owners of the grove didn't mind us kids or whoever picking oranges. I didn't like it when we had orange fights with them. They fussed at us about that. But, the canning kitchen I thought was a great idea, and I wish I could think of tomatoes. They raised my mom canned a lot of tomatoes. But there'd be 3 families in there, and they might be 100 or so jars of whatever it was. Mom had a lot of those mason jars with the things that seal them. And the lady that ran the canning kitchen, she was a county employee, Miss Olive, a large woman, really nice lady. And she was there to see to it the families did their canning proper and didn't poison their families. And if the lids didn't pop, you didn't take them home. Some of them didn't. You could eat them then, but you're not taking them home. and it was really, and it was a nice commercial canning kitchen. It was really a nice setup. And there was a little bitty jail right not very far from it, where they put the drunks in for the night and let them out the next day. Of course, that all went away when things got out of hand. I think of anything else. The railroad went by right by the high school, and us kids would put pennies on the track to get them mashed. And I'm not sure what year it was, but there was a plane from the Sanford Naval Air Station that crashed in Oviedo. You probably got records of that. And the three, I think it was three guys on board, and they all went down with a plane, and it was assumed that they stayed with it to miss that school. And they barely missed it. They just barely got over to school and landed. They crashed it in that little orange grove right across from the school. But those fellows gave their life to save a bunch of kids. Pretty touching.
Yeah.
I don't think anything else. I remember getting a doctor in Oviedo. They never, we're a small town, we never had a doctor. And Dr. Stoner, well, the town built a clinic and they got a doctor to come. Dr. Edward Stoner came there as a doctor. And, well, we were on the map then. We had a doctor. There were three grocery stores in Oviedo. Alfred's Grocery, mom and pop grocery kind of places. Spencer's Grocery, and Faircloth Grocery, and Buchanan's Meat Market. And they were pretty high priced. My mom did her shopping in Orlando. Couldn't afford the prices of that place. I know Alfred's later became a red and white store. It was a big deal. They had a big grand opening, and it changed from, it's kind of like IGA. It was a red and white store, like a franchise you bought into. And Spencer's was a grocery store and a dry goods store. They sold clothes and shoes. And matter of fact, I used to buy my Levi's from Spencer's. I mowed lawns the year I turned 12. I mowed lawns all summer, and when it come time to go to school next year, my mom said, "You worked all summer, you buy your own school clothes." So wow, I thought, wow, that's really rough, but it wasn't so rough. It was pretty good.
You've mentioned several family businesses. Uh-huh. Can you talk a little bit about your dad's filling station?
Oh yeah, Dad. When I was probably 13, my dad bought the Pure Oil station. It was the Oviedo Service Station was the name of it, but it was a Pure Oil right across from the drugstore in Oviedo. Actually, the part of the building is still there. It's Palm Computers or something. I'm not sure what it is now. But yeah, we had that. My brother and I ran it. Dad was still working for clients. He bought it for my brother to run, and we ran the gas station for I don't know how many years, several years, and you didn't make any money on gas, so we did mechanic work and washed cars and greased cars and changed oil and all of that kind of stuff, and it's still pretty rough to make a living. And I went to school out at Mid-Florida Tech under a government program for, I forget how many months, about 11 months, I think, to learn to rebuild automatic transmissions in cars. Automatic transmissions were new on the scene. Nobody knew how to work on them, so I'm going to get me a trade I'd make money at. So I went there and I did that, and I put my little sign out in front of the gas station, automatic transmission repair or whatever, and every other gas station up and down the highway everywhere had the same signs out because, there was a need for, 200 guys to rebuild transmission, and the government trained 3,000 of us. And, I couldn't make a living. it was pretty rough. But it rebuilt a lot of transmissions.
So, how do you think Oviedo has changed over the years?
Drastically. It's changed a lot. They've got city water now. Everybody used to have wells. I guess there's even some city sewer there. I don't know, a lot of it, but the older houses don't have, I don't think. That's been there a long time. But it's changed a lot. There was one traffic light in Oviedo most of the time I was growing up, and 2 different times, I guess they didn't like being a one traffic light town, so they put another one at Broadway and Lake Jessup, and there was no traffic there was no point in it. So they took it down, and a few years later they put it back up. Of course, there's one there now, but things have changed. But it's kind of funny that it was different. There was a hardware store in Oviedo, Nelson's Hardware, and it was pretty much a staple of the farm community because they stocked everything. You could rebuild your pitcher pump, buy the parts to rebuild your pitcher pump there, or most anything a farmer would need, you could buy at that store. And it's Ace Hardware up there now, but it's totally different. It's a part of a big franchise, but they had everything. They sold guns and ammunition, a lot of hunting guns and stuff, and all kind of course, everything a hardware store sells. But they had a lot of stuff there. It was an interesting store. And there was an old man that sat around talking on benches there, down at the hardware store and up in front of the drugstore, and sometimes over at our gas station. The old guys that sat around and talked. And I can remember flies were, it's farm community, so flies were bad. And they had these fly traps they made and sat out on the sidewalk, screen wire and a little funnel-like thing had a screen wire going down into it, and it'd hang a banana on the bottom of it, and there'd be 5 or 6 of them down the sidewalk. They'd be full of flies, and they helped a lot. And the stores had them ceiling fans over the doors to keep the flies out. Nobody had any air conditioning then, and but they did have screen doors to keep them out. Worked pretty good. Of course, there was always a bank in Oviedo. Matter of fact, your records probably show when it got blew up back in the rush back there before my time, but the hole was there when I was a kid where they blew the bank up, the vault or whatever. Pieces of the vault were still there.
Over by the landfill. Is that where you're talking about?
No,
over in Geneva?
It was kind of catty-cornered across from where the Baptist church, well, it's not Baptist anymore, it's some other name, right there on the corner. There was just a hole in the ground, and us kids would go around, and we heard the story about it. When they had to run on the banks, back in I don't know when that was, and they blew it up. And then I think Mr. Roy Klontz was a banker in Georgia, and he came down here. He may have worked at that bank, I'm not sure, but there was so much money being made raising salary, he went into farming. And of course, he was one of the principals in the Citizens Bank of Oviedo that got formed after that one got blew. I don't know what the name of that one was, but Roy Klontz and Frank Wheeler and Charles LeBlack was another farmer in Oviedo. I forgot a while ago. And those guys, they own the bank, I guess. They started a bank because the town needed a bank. That's the reason Frank Wheeler built a fertilizer plant. The farmer needed fertilizer. And I know the fertilizer plant burnt one time, and Frank was doing everything, Mr. Wheeler was doing everything he could to get it back working. And he said, what are the farmers going to do for fertilizer, and They improvised somehow. Now they brought it in from elsewhere, but he was a good man, a very good man. He was. I feel very fortunate to have known men like Frank Wheeler and Mr. Roy Clontz and Port Eldridge. He owned the Eldridge Dairy back here that was built when I was a kid. He built it up from a few cows to 600 head herd, and had a large parcel of land back there. And he employed quite a few people running the dairy, and his hay fields and his silos and his all of the stuff that it took to run a dairy. And he was just a very good person, very good man. And I always said when the good Lord picked people to make wealthy, he made good choices. And guys like Mr. Eldridge and Frank Wheeler and the Dudas, Mr. Roy Clontz, he was just a fine gentleman, just good people.
That's nice.
And Mr. C.S. Lee traded with us at the gas station. He had been a Seminole County commissioner at one time. He was past that and then kind of more or less retired. But he always struck me as the epitome of a Southern gentleman. He always wore one of those little bowling ties and a cowboy hat and long sleeve button down light colored shirts and cowboy boots, and looked like a cowboy. And he was in and out of our gas station a lot. Seemed like a nice guy to me. I didn't know him that well. I don't know that much about him, but I know his grandsons now. Actually, his grandson was the president of Citizens Bank until it sold to Fairwinds. And Jim Wilson was another farmer in Oviedo. He had about quit farming, I believe, by the time I was old enough to know. But I remember Jim used to tell us that he always drove a new Cadillac. He'd get a new Cadillac every year. And he used to tell us that he couldn't spend his dividends from his General Motors investment each year, that they got enough money there he couldn't spend it all. He was he was quite a guy. And of course we had a volunteer fire department, and my dad was real active in that. He actually built a water wagon, a big old. He took a military truck. That's what he built those harvesters out of, a military truck. But he got the city to buy an old military truck, and he built a huge steel water tank on it, and they put pumps and stuff on it so they could fight fires with it. And the fire siren was part of it belonged to the city, but it was there at the gas station, and it run off the power from our gas station. It had a little knife switch, and the service station number was listed as the fire department in Oviedo. And if anybody had a fire, they called, and we answered the phone. And if they had a fire, we was to run out there and throw that switch up and blow the siren, and all the people, the volunteers would come, and they'd get the fire trucks and go put the fire out. Well, I guess we got a couple of bogus calls, and we run, the thing, and the guy that went out and had no fire. So, of course, just a couple of kids running the gas station, so they come fussed at us about it. Don't you blow that thing unless they tell you this. Okay. So, one day I was there and the phone rang, fire! Somebody there excited, and I asked them the questions I was supposed to ask, what's your name, what's your address, and they hung up. They're gone, and I ain't gonna blow it. I don't want to get in trouble again. So I'm looking a little bit. I can see the smoke coming up over there, so I run around there and blew it. And I blew the siren, and I went up, and it was the fire was in one of the little shanty places in Clont's quarters, a bunch of little houses real close together. And they come around and got the fire trucks and went up there, and the smoke was getting worse. I felt kind of bad about it, so I thought, I'll go up and see if I can help. And I was like 16, 17 years old. And I went up there, and there's 4 or 5 of those little shanties on fire. And The guys were going in with axes and busting stuff up so you could put water on it. So they gave me an axe, and I went busted some cabinets down off the wall, and they sprayed water on. It was a lot of fun. We didn't save those houses; they were gone. I always did feel bad about not blowing that siren, but they told me not to. I didn't do it. And we chose something else. It was the one traffic light that was in town. We changed the light bulbs. When the light bulbs were burned out, that was something else that went with it on in the gas station. We took an extension ladder and went out and leaned it up against the light in the middle of the intersection. Didn't have any cones or barricades. I hope nobody knocked the ladder out from under you. Just one of us go out there and open the thing out and screw a new light bulb in it, come back down. So it's changed a lot. And George Kelsey was a cop. He was a city police chief, and he was the constable for Seminole County for the Oviedo area. And a little short fella, stocky little guy, and pretty foul-mouthed fella. And he'd wear a lot of times he'd wear 6-shooters on his side and stand on the corner with his thumbs in his pocket and rock back and forth on his heels. He wore a cowboy hat too, and he was just a bad hombre, but he upheld the law. He did a good job. I'm sure he took some payoff from the moonshiners and that kind of stuff, and I don't know what all he did like that, but I kind of think that's just the way things worked back in those days, it seemed like. But he maintained the law. He kept us kids in line, and he kept a lot of other people in line too. Overall he was a good cop. He was foul-mouthed, and he'd cuss you up one side and down the other if you did something wrong. But overall, he did his job, I thought. Of course, politics took him out too. I forget what they did. It was crazy.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Probably do, but I can't think of it. It's there, but it's in the memory, but the recall system doesn't work so well, you know.
I think you have shared quite a bit. This has been quite a wonderful snapshot.
The lake here. Most of the people in Oviedo call this Smithson's Lake because we lived on the shore of the lake over there. Not really, we lived across the street from it, but that was our property there. And it was our swimming hole, and all of our friends came out and swam there. Well, somewhere in the 50s, my dad went to Alabama and brought a slide from a lake he grew up on in Alabama that I guess they filled it in Bessemer, Alabama. He brought it down here and took one of Duder's trucks, and went up there and got it, brought it down here, and he erected that slide on the east shore of Lake Hayes out in the water. And it was just a congregating place for our neighborhood, everybody in the area, our little community here. And a lot of Oviedo come out here and swam and played and went off that slide. I mean, it was on like a vacant lot because we lived across the street from it. It wasn't uncommon for midnight, a bunch of kids be out there going down that slide. They had water run to it from my sister's house that was right near there. You just turned a valve on and water run down it. The slide's still over at my brother's across the street, across the lake over here. We moved it over there, I don't know, probably 45 years ago. A long time ago. It's been there a long time. But that slide was kind of a landmark in this area for a long time. Okay. I did think of something else.
Well, there is actually one more story that I'm curious about that you had mentioned. So the property that you're on, you've had it for a very long time.
Yeah. Where I live today is on a piece of property that I bought as one of my family members. We all went and bought a 10-acre parcel together. I was 15 years old. I mowed lawns to pay for it. My part of the payment was $25 a month. And I mowed lawns to pay it. When I was 16 years old, I cut that road through the swamp with a machete. I had an old skeeter, and I'm going to build me a house there someday. And I did. I wound up building a house there in 71. I built the house next door over there and lived in it for about 8 or 9 years, I guess. I bought this house, the one I'm living in now. I mean, I built this house in 76 for my mother. And she lived here for 3 years. And then she wanted to get closer to her church. It was in Sanford, so I helped her find a piece of property over there, cleared it, and got her set up over there in a house. And I bought this one back from her. And I lived here ever since.
And what church did your mother attend?
The Church of Christ. Originally, we all went to when I was raised, we went to the Church of Christ in Geneva. And somehow or another, she moved to the one in Sanford. And I quit going. But the Church of Christ that she went to in Sanford is still there. It's on Park Avenue, I think. That's right, yeah. But she lived on South Sanford Avenue for many years. She lacked 2 weeks of making 94. We had her big 90th birthday party here back when she turned 90. I sold the house that I built in 71 to my son. He lived in it 7 or 8 years, and he sold it to some more people that live there now. But I still have the rest of the property. The rest of that, a piece of the 10 acres and part of the 5 acres that my mom and dad had bought years before that. It was my dad's dream that all of us kids would live around this lake. And he gave each one of us a lakefront lot to build a house on. He gave me one, and I bought one, so I had 2. My younger brother, he gave him one. He built a home on it. He gave my oldest sister a house. She built a home on it. Gave my oldest brother a house. He built a house on it. He still lives there, and I still live here. My sister sold and moved to Georgia. And my brother that built one over there, he sold and he moved to Georgia also. My other sister never built. She lives in Texas. She just moved out there, sold her lot and moved to Texas. But it was my dad's dream that we'd all live around this lake. He loved it. And it was always a nice lake. It's spring-fed lake. Aside from the state dumping all the dirty water off the highway in it, it's always been a good lake. But they've polluted it time and time again over the years. And when this developer developed what's now Remington Park back here, they mandated, there's 3 commercial lots there on the front. There's a building on one of them. They gave one of them to the Seminole County for a fire department. They changed their mind, don't want it. They mandated that he build a wall between those commercial properties and our residential property here, that brick wall that's out there, and landscape it and put irrigation in and maintain it for life. When he sold those lots, the maintenance went with it. Well, the first lot that he sold, DOT bought it for a retention pond. They tore the wall down, ripped the well out, tore out all the irrigation, and nothing anybody could do about it. I went to Seminole County and asked about it. I said, y'all mandated this be done. Is there, and somebody, the people bought it, come in and tore the wall down. And, y'all got any kind of commitment inspector or whatever? Said, oh yeah. We think that. I said, well, one thing I hadn't told you. He said, what's that? I said, who bought it? I said, DOT. But no, we can't do anything. That was the end of that. And so they I don't have a very fond opinion of Florida's DOT, period. Florida, I've traveled all over this country, and you can always tell if I'm asleep in the back seat or whatever when you get into Florida, because the roads are bad. You go, I mean, I've been to Arkansas and Oklahoma, supposedly got the worst roads in the country. They got a lot of potholes because they can't afford to maintain their roads. But Florida DOT is just as antiquated as anyone I've ever been in. When Disney came here, they had a meeting with DOT and told them they did all their projections, told them what they would do to I-4. And we're going to turn it into a parking lot the day we open it if you don't do something with it. They spent quite a few hours in their meeting, and DOC said, okay, so when the traffic's there, we'll do something about it. And that's what they did. They would the roads are full, and then they try to build roads. You go to Georgia, there's 6-lane divide highways, been there for 30 years, going out through nowhere. They're full now, but they built them back when it was cheap to build them and there was no traffic there. Florida won't do that. And there's not a bridge in this state, there might be 2 or 3 out of all of them, that you can drive on and not have a hump going on and off of them. That 417, how many times have they redone the approach on both sides of it because you couldn't keep your car under control, it sinks. And the bridge itself was built by people that know how to build bridges out of Louisiana. They've been floating all their life. But the road in Butma coming up to it, that's some bad soil in Florida, a lot of muck, and it sinks. I don't know what they need to do. I'm not an engineer, but they need to do something a lot different. Maybe drive pylons or something at the edge of the bridges. I don't know. But you can always tell. If I go over a bridge in another state and it's like that, I said, the Florida bridge builders have been up here. Anyway, I'll quit complaining.
Last chance. Anything else you want to share?
I can't think of it now.
Again,
I don't remember anything else. The families that lived around this lake, maybe. The Jacksons lived on the northeast shore of the lake when I was a kid. The elder Jacksons, and then Douglas Jackson and his wife Lillian built the home that's over there now. She passed within the last 2 years. Home's still over there though. And the Whitemans lived what would be on this road really, but they come in through the woods up there another way up on the hill. Mr. Whiteman worked at the road camp out here in Jamestown. It was a prison back then. Every now and again a prisoner would escape, and everybody be after the prisoner that escaped, and everybody would be scared till they caught him. It was a road camp where they did road repair, and of course back then the convicts worked on the road. Now they let them play basketball or whatever they want to do. They don't. It's inhumane to make them work, I guess. But they had chain gangs out on the side of the road, with slings, cutting the grass and all that kind of stuff. And Mr. Whiteman was a guard on one of those chain gangs. And he had 2 daughters, Cornelia and Charlene. And I don't know what age people they were. They'd probably be, Charlene would probably be in her 90s by now. She was older than my sister. My sister's almost 90. And when I was a little fella, I always asked her if she would wait for me to marry her. I wanted to marry her when I got old enough. She was a pretty woman. And Douglas and Lillian had 2 daughters, Pat and Melanie, and both of them married Duda boys, Andrew and Luther. They married well. Okay, I'll quit.
Well, thank you very much for this, Rodger. So much great history here. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. I enjoyed it. It's nice reminiscing about some of that stuff. There's probably a lot more. I just can't remember it. Horses were about our only means of transportation back then. I had a horse, and I've never liked horses. You shut us off.